You ever wake up one morning and find your life sitting on the curb with a bunch of parking tickets stapled to it? That's how my story starts, except the thing on the curb wasn't a car. It was my reputation, and the tickets were a stack of lies. My name is Ethan Hale, and for 10 years I'd built a life on a patch of land that smelled like pine and old paint, and the orchard I planted with my own hands. Then Maple Ridge Estates decided I didn't belong there anymore, or rather, one woman decided I didn't belong, and the whole neighborhood let her make the rules. People say HOAs are about curb appeal and lawn height. That's the polite version. The messy version is about who gets to dictate your life after you buy it. And when that power lands in someone's hands who mistakes rules for righteousness, bad things happen fast. Marjorie Wren ran Maple Ridge like she ran everything else, loudly, with a ledger and a ledger's worth of grudges. She had the kind of smile that folded like a letter, neat, practiced, always closing. Her daughter Lila watched from the sidelines at first, then slowly learned how to clap when her mother wanted applause. I knew them both, enough to say hi, not enough to see the needle Marjorie was threading through the community. The first stab came quietly, the way frost creeps in at dawn. One week I'd been pruning the pear trees, humming music my grandfather used to like, when someone left a note on my gate. Appeal to the board required unauthorized orchard. I laughed it off. Rules are rules, I told myself, but this felt like a sting dressed in etiquette. I went to the meeting, brought diagrams, a soil test, photos going back years, everything an honest man would bring to prove his right to what he owned. Marjorie listened while she steepled her fingers. Community harmony, she said, the phrase like a bookmark between her teeth. We must be fair to everyone. Fair, it turns out, is a costume people put on when they plan to pinch you. 2 nights later the sheriff pulled up to my driveway. I remember the way the headlights painted the maple trunk silver, how my dog padded behind me as I opened the door. 2 officers, a woman from the HOA, and Marjorie in a wool coat that didn't belong in my yard. Mr. Hale, one of the officers said, and there was a weight in his voice like paper pressed between 2 books. They told me I was accused of stealing trees, not pruning, not transplanting. Stealing 84 saplings that the HOA claimed were part of a community orchard. I stood there, hands in my shirt pockets, the cold seeping through the porch boards, and felt the whole world tilt. Someone had counted my trees, made a map, and decided they were theirs. Handcuffs are colder than you expect. They clink in a way that echoes. The neighbors watched from their porches, phones out like lighthouses. Someone live-streamed my arrest. Within hours, a meme had my face beside a cartoon yard sign that read, "Tree Thief." Social media did what it always does, it turned rumor into headline, and headline into verdict. I could have melted into silence, but I'd spent my life building things out of stubbornness, and stubbornness refuses to dissolve. I hired a lawyer, Avery Knox, who smelled of coffee and old courtrooms and made you feel like the facts themselves would line up if she asked them politely. Avery said one thing that steadied me. Every power structure looks unassailable until the ledger is opened. So we opened the ledger. Discovery is the slow reveal of a magician's trick. It's subpoenas and paper cuts and the delightful moment when you find a signature that doesn't belong to the person who supposedly signed it. We found invoices ended in the same handwriting as Marjorie's grocery lists, maps with dates that had been rolled back like film to make a scene where none existed. There were emails between board members where "we have to make him leave" wasn't a metaphor, it was a campaign plan wrapped in meeting minutes. And then there was Lila. She came to me the way a storm approaches, quietly at first. A text, a knock, a coffee left on the mailbox. But when she sat on my porch and the sun was doing that thin, forgiving light of late afternoon, she started handing me pieces. Not all at once, because that's not how secrets are shared. They drip, then they pour. She told me about a family history that twisted into the HOA's authority, how her mother had always wanted a prettier stage, and how anything that didn't fit into the scene was allowed to be swept away. She brought an email, fingers shaking, with a subject line that read, "We need him gone." It was the sort of thing that should have stayed private, but when it's part of the reason someone's life is being taken apart, private has to be shouted. We didn't scream. We built. Avery filed a suit for defamation, malicious prosecution, and whatever else she could stitch to peel back the rot. We asked for cameras, for audits, for witnesses to come forward. To our surprise, they did. People who'd kept their heads down for years started mentioning small injustices: a driveway flagged for having the wrong gravel, a mailbox ripped down for being the wrong shade of beige. It was like slowly turning on lights in a hallway and finding that every painting had been painted over, not because it needed it, but because someone wanted the walls to match. Then the courtroom. Courtrooms are loud and small, and full of people who think silence is the same as truth. Marjorie painted herself as a guardian of order. She told the judge, with a voice like a bell someone forgot to polish, that she had acted for the good of the community. Avery, who had the calm of someone who'd watched too many theatrics to be impressed, laid evidence down like a map of a lie. We played video of my land, dated satellite images, invoices, the email with "We need him gone." Lila read a message aloud that made her mother's facade crack, just a little, like plaster after an earthquake. The jurors were ordinary people: a nurse, a teacher, a man who kept checking his watch as if he too wanted to know how long truth would take. When the verdict came, it landed with the same odd, precise weight that a relief brings after a storm. The jury found in my favor. Damages were awarded. The HOA was ordered to restructure, and Marjorie was barred from serving in leadership for years. It wasn't vengeance. Avery always stopped me when I used that word. It was accountability, which feels dull on paper but tastes like relief. Victory didn't repair everything. Money doesn't glue back the looks people gave you when they saw the handcuffs. It doesn't erase the late nights replaying the sound of the sheriff's knock. But it did something else. It turned my private grievance into a public conversation. Neighbors I'd hardly spoken to offered help hauling soil. Someone brought pies. Lila and we grew into something softer, the kind of thing that is built from shared secrets and shared reparations. We planted new trees together, in a line that said, plainly, "This is ours." And because endings without a little ash aren't honest, here's the thing that keeps people talking. Some folks in Maple Ridge thought we'd gone too far. They whispered about anti-community actions and outside interference. A few signed petitions to reform the ruling, to argue for a softer sentencing of past behavior. The debate spilled into coffee shops, into comment threads, into family dinners where people who'd never met me suddenly had opinions about my moral character. Justice is rarely neat. It's a string of decisions and compromises, and a community learning, sometimes slowly, that power must be answerable to fairness. I tell you all this not because I want pity, but because people ask me, more and more now, where the line is between keeping a neighborhood tidy and letting someone tidy your life away. It's a good question, and the answer is never short. For me, the line was where someone started taking what I had and calling it theirs, where the desire for control outpaced any real harm it claimed to prevent. For others, the line will be somewhere else, and that's why these conversations matter. If you walk past my place now, if you ever do, you'll see a row of pear trees, planted neat and honest, with a little sign someone nailed that reads, "Planted for the neighbors." It's not a monument to victory. It's a promise to keep tending. Lila and I sit on the porch some afternoons and watch the yard grow. We still argue about paint colors and who forgets to water what, but the shouting is behind us. Mostly there's laughter and a kind of quiet that feels earned. So here's what I want to know from you. Where do you draw the line between order and ownership? When does community become control? Have you ever had an authority figure in your Lithian HOA? A boss? A neighbor who crossed that line? Drop a comment and tell me your story. Don't hold back. The best way we learn is from each other. And if this one tale did anything, it made people look up from their porches and talk. If this resonated, share it with someone who lives under a rulebook that feels heavier than it should. Like the video if you believe people should be accountable, not theatrical. And if you want more stories where ordinary folks take on extraordinary small-town power plays, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you next time. Same porch, different trees, and hopefully a little more coffee.